living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
We all know getting older changes our bodies, and our brain is no exception. We need our brain for planning, making decisions, all essential activities for independent living. So how do we keep our brain healthy? Welcome to Healthy Living for Life. I'm your host, Colleen Boy-Lance, and today we'll talk about brain health. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Healthy Living for Life. Joining us today is Dr. Loretta Bolyard. She is a clinical neuropsychologist with Mountain West Psychological Resources in Butte, Montana. Dr. Bolyard, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the show again.
Thanks.
So, we talk about brain health on our show quite often, and we often start with dementia and different forms of dementia, such as Alzheimer's. Our brain is really very complex, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And aging is inevitable, as we know, as are our wrinkles and our gray hair. But dementia, such as Alzheimer's disease, is not part of the normal aging process. But as we do age, it is normal to experience some changes in our thinking and our mood. And much of this is related to our brains shrinking in overall size, which is normal for aging. And that makes our brain less efficient, and we feel that.
Wow, that's just maybe a little bit scary, the fact that our brain is shrinking over time. So when you say that, what exactly does that mean?
Well, everyone's brain is different. And so generally speaking, our brains are not fully developed until we're about 35 years old. And then across the rest of our life, we start to naturally lose brain cells. And this causes changes to the shape of our brain, as well as the size of our brain, especially that outer layer of the brain called the cerebral cortex. And then we often see changes in those frontal areas, which tend to be the largest areas of the brain. And so basically, when the brain is shrinking in overall size, there are naturally fewer connections between the cells, or those connections are not able to transmit the information as efficiently. And so as a result, our thinking becomes a bit less efficient. And that overall shrinking is called atrophy, and again, can be a part of normal aging.
That's very interesting. So as our brain is naturally getting smaller, what are some of those common experiences that we're all going to have?
What I hear, and as people are aging, folks tell me that they feel like their cognitive abilities are slipping, and they start to have problems with their memory, such as forgetting details of recent conversations, or forgetting why I walked into a room, maybe forgetting an appointment or two. And then one of the largest things that I hear are word finding troubles. And so it's that tip of the tongue, trying to find that right word as I'm conversating. And then maybe harder to pay attention, feeling a little bit slower, not quite as fast on their feet.
So these changes in memory and thinking can become debilitating?
No, they should not be in normal aging. And so, in fact, that is one of the main differences between normal aging and developing something like a dementia, such as Alzheimer's disease, that the changes that are happening in normal aging should not be debilitating. But dementia, on the other hand, and by definition, starts to affect our activities of daily living, such as managing our money, managing our medications, those sorts of things. And so I, again, would say that normal aging is not debilitating. But what can be debilitating in the normal aging brain is we can develop some mood symptoms, such as anxiety.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What are some of the common signs or symptoms of anxiety in older adults?
Well, Well, I would say that similar to the aging brain, anxiety can take many forms, especially across one's lifetime. We might see folks presenting as more irritable or panicky, or talking about feeling nervous or tense, having a hard time relaxing. Some people experience anxiety in very physical ways, such as feeling dizzy or tense or lightheaded, or even having some shortness of breath. People also complain of problems with sleep or feeling down and blue. They may not want to leave their house. They might even become a little more stubborn or stuck in their ways over time.
And are there certain triggers that might trigger the anxiety in older adults?
Yeah, I think that really depends on the person. And what I often hear as things that are causing anxiety are, folks are worrying about their finances, their health is worsening over time, they're losing their independence, driving is a big one. And then folks are also worried about end of life kinds of issues and grief and loss. It can be really a hard chapter for some people and hard to talk about out loud. And then, of course, COVID on top of all of this has created even more anxiety, loneliness, and isolation. And the last thing I would say about that is I also see many older adults coming to me with significant anxiety because they're really worried or concerned that they have dementia or that they might get dementia, when in fact they don't have that and instead have anxiety.
So you mentioned that people start to worry. We have about 30 seconds left, and then we're going to have to take a break. But when should family members become worried?
For me, I think the sooner the better. I mean, if you or your loved one is struggling, we really need to take that seriously, especially if you're having changes in your sleep or your weight and you're withdrawn or you're preoccupied. And sometimes anxiety and depression can mimic dementia as well. And so it's really important to seek out care when you're feeling this.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate all the good information. We are going to take just a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk with Dr. Balliard a few more minutes about mental health. So stay tuned. Welcome back. Dr. Loretta Balliard is with us, and we are talking about aging and our brain. Thank you so much for joining us again. Now, interestingly enough, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, what we call the CDC, there are about 20% of people that are aged 55 and older that experience some type of mental health concern. Can we talk a little bit about some of those most common concerns?
Yeah, mental distress can take a variety of forms in older adults. We've mostly talked about anxiety, but many older adults also experience depression. Grief and loss is a big one, current or past trauma, which we particularly see in veterans. And then also insomnia. Insomnia can be difficult. And then some people also turn to alcohol and drugs to soothe their worries and to pass time. As I mentioned, it's a really hard chapter for many aging adults.
Yeah, and we care about our loved ones so much. And if there is alcohol or substance use or misuse going on, is it possible for a family member to get a referral to treatment on behalf of an older adult?
Yes, I think that alcohol and drug use in older adults is really a growing problem. We've been talking about it as an invisible epidemic, really. And if you are worried about your loved one or even yourself, if you're worried about your loved one, I would really encourage you to talk with them about it. We want to be direct, but we want to be kind. We don't want to be judgmental. Your loved one may not even realize that they need help or feel that they can control it. They might also be really worried about withdrawal symptoms. And so I would encourage everyone to talk with the doctor. And if that doesn't work, reaching out to a minister or a longtime friend. There's also some other agencies that families could reach out to for more specific referrals.
That's really good information. As you look at some of the data, are there certain demographics that are at higher risk for developing mental health issues?
Yeah, we know that older adults who have a history of mood disorders in the past, such as anxiety or depression or substance use, that they are at a higher rate or higher risk for developing mental health issues in when they're older as well. We also know that individuals who have other chronic illnesses, such as heart disease or cancer, can be at greater risk, especially when their mobility and their independence become affected. And so it's really important here to highlight that, prolonged or worsening mood symptoms is not a part of normal aging. And there are certainly medications and other treatments that we could be targeting to improve the quality of lives, really.
So we talked about depression and anxiety, and that having some other chronic diseases or illnesses might affect that. But are mood disorders different in older adults than they are, say, in the younger population?
Well, I think that in some ways, yes. As we talked about, older adults are experiencing other chronic health issues as well. And they very well could be taking a number of medications that for those underlying medical problems that could be having side effects that they're struggling with. And then many older adults and those around them could be perceiving their mood symptoms as a natural reaction to their illness or other life changes, such as becoming widowed. Mm-hmm. And then in that context, they're less likely to maybe seek help, or their symptoms are really misunderstood. And then I would also say that some of our older adults have less experience with mental health, and so they don't necessarily recognize symptoms of anxiety or depression. And then, of course, we have a generation of individuals who, kind of grew up with this pick yourself up by the bootstrap mentality. And so they see having mental health as sort of a weakness, and therefore they're less likely to seek out help as well.
That is a challenge in promoting mental health, and I'm sure that there are others. What are some of the common challenges you face in promoting mental health?
Well, I think that we really, in our aging population, that we just need to be better at identifying what those risk factors are for aging adults, and then also really working to increase awareness about mental health issues in aging. Educating folks about what sorts of treatments are available, and then working to decrease any sort of social stigma that individuals might have around mental health, and then getting those related treatments. And then in Montana, I do think that we also need to work very hard toward improving access to healthcare and mental health services.
Yeah, it is hard in our rural and frontier areas. So let's say that we don't have access. We've got about 30 seconds left. Can you talk to us a little bit about self-care?
Yeah, I would say that the most important part of self-care is being proactive in practicing. Self-care in our daily lives can certainly have good effects. I mean, we want to get outside. We want to be engaging with people. We want to set priorities for ourselves, get a massage, get your nails done, whatever might be your interest, in trial and error until we find that.
And socialization is so important, especially now. Thank you so much. We are going to take just a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk a little bit more about aging and trying to keep our brains healthy. Stay with us. Welcome back. Dr. Loretta Balliard, who is a clinical neuropsychologist, is still with us, and we are going to talk a little bit more about our brains and keeping them healthy as we age. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of really good information, and I think that one thing people might have a hard time with is really discerning between having dementia and just experiencing some problems thinking and remembering. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, I would say that there's a lot of overlap between, serious depression and anxiety and confusing that with dementia. And so I think the most important thing is to make an appointment with the doctor. They can certainly help to tease out some of those questions by ordering different labs or a brain scan. They can also administer some short tests looking at your mood and sleep. And then oftentimes patients are referred to a neuropsychologist like myself. And we have the ability to sometimes do a more detailed evaluation that includes not only talking with you, but also talking with your family and performing a number of brain games that really look at your memory, your thinking, your mood, all of that.
You just mentioned having your family part of that. Is it important to bring a family member with you if you need to talk to the doctor about this?
Absolutely. I feel like I always have a family member present and what I share with my clients is that your perception might be different than your family member's perception. And so it's important to get information from more than one source.
Yeah. And then, you mentioned self-care a little bit earlier. And if you do have, a family member there, that can become part of the conversation, I would think.
Very much.
And are there other kinds of self-care that seem to work better than others? You mentioned going outside or hanging out with, friends or family. Are there other self-care ideas you have?
Yeah, I agree. We've talked about socializing. We've touched on some exercise, eating a good, healthy diet, but then also keeping mentally stimulated is really important. I encourage my folks to, read, do crossword puzzles, word searches, play some board games with your grandchildren, computer games, getting outside, tinkering in your garage. Again, everybody is really different, so you have to find what works for you. And then also talking about the importance of keeping your health, your body healthy by controlling your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your diabetes. And then, of course, as we likely all know, is that stopping alcohol or nicotine, or at least slowing that down a little bit, can be brain healthy and keep our bodies healthy longer.
There's a lot that goes into keeping our brains healthy, isn't there?
Yes.
You just mentioned brain games, and I've seen some of those brain games, and I'm wondering, are those backed up by clinical research?
Well, so far into my knowledge, there's been no studies that have shown that brain training prevents dementia. Brain games are thought to improve aspects of our memory and thinking, particularly those who are middle-aged and older. And this idea of brain training really comes from the concept of use it or lose it. And so through my lens, engaging in any sort of activity that is mentally stimulating can be helpful across time. And it also feels good to be mentally stimulated and engaged.
Yes, and I like your idea of playing board games with your grandchildren, getting outside, socializing. What about vitamins or supplements? Are they helpful at all?
I would say that eating a healthy diet is the best way to get your nutrients and antioxidants. And before considering any sort of supplement, be sure, I just want my patients to talk with their primary care providers just to make sure that there are no interactions between, the supplement and their medications or their underlying health conditions. And then, some of the basic supplements that I encourage patients to talk with their doctors about are things like a multivitamin, vitamin D, vitamin B, a good omega-3 such as fish oil. And there's also some doctors who specialize in functional medicine who certainly recommend many other sorts of supplements as well.
So functional medicine, that's something I haven't really heard of. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think of functional medicine as, a provider who is really looking to understand not just what your diagnosis is and how to treat it, but really to understand where that's coming from and to treat those underlying issues more holistically.
That's interesting. And I would assume you mentioned, some of the fish oil and some of those other vitamins. And again, you would want to talk to your doctor before you started taking any of those, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just because of the possible interactions. Okay.
Yeah, and also wanting to make sure that you buy high quality supplements, because there's a lot of things out there that claim to be one thing when in fact they're not.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a good point. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, just a little bit of time left. Any other final thoughts or advice you would leave us with?
I always come back to the idea of, this is a hard chapter for so many folks, and showing up to your life is really important, making new memories with those that we love, and just being active, proactive, and trying to keep yourself as healthy as possible.
All great ideas. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Balliard, for joining us today. We really appreciate having you on the show again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. And I hope you'll join us again next week. And until then, stay fit, stay well, stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life. Take care.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health in partnership with AARP Montana. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the Healthy Living for Life logo. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.